Greetings, everyone. I am Giray Atipoğlu, founder of the Fire Research and Training Limited company in Turkey. It is on astrophysics research, tools, and people. And one of the activities Fire Research and Training the company does is Science Ascent, publishing the journal. Among the things Science Ascent does, it's the interview with the critical people from the field. In which case, the person you see right beside me, Mark Wieczorek, is one of them. He is a senior research scientist in Institut de Physique du Globe de Paris in Planetary and Space Sciences group. At the same time, I know him from his pioneering activities in the leading activities in Planetary Research Journal and Planetary Research Cooperative. So without further ado from myself, I'm giving the floor to Mark Wieczorek. Welcome again. Thank you for accepting the interview.
Thanks.
So,
I guess I just start by just giving a quick introduction to myself.
Yes.
So as you can probably tell from the accent, I am originally American. So I did my studies in the US, starting at Washington University in St. Louis. I went on to do a postdoc with Maria Zuber at MIT afterwards. And then around 2003, I got a position in France with CNRS, which is the National Science Foundation of the country, which is where I've been working since. And in terms of my background in science, I would consider myself to be a geophysicist. I mostly work with the gravity fields of planets, their topography, and also their magnetic field. I'm interested in impact cratering and how that affects the crusts of planets, and also interested in dynamos a little bit, though I don't get into the details of that. So pretty much all the way from the crust to the core. But most of the data I use are from spacecraft missions and mostly geophysics. And just as a couple missions that I worked with, probably the most successful one was the Grail mission, which measured the gravity field of the moon. And also involved with some recent missions in Europe, such as Bepi Colombo, which is going to arrive at Mercury very soon, and JUICE, which will arrive much later. So,
yes.
So, anyways, that's my academic career in a nutshell.
Well, that's very interesting and good. Of course, we will be monitoring more for your works on the academic career as well. So let me move with the second question then. A lot of people know you from the alternative and very good services you provided, finding and creating or using it completely on both internal and external services. Let me ask this question first to you. Like, what was the first time you considered using alternatives to the mostly used USA or big corporation services like Twitter, Zoom, Slack, etc.?
Well, I would say, yeah, so that's a hard question to answer, but I would say it's probably over a period of about 10 years where I used to, as a scientist, used to use Apple products and Mac OS and OS 10 at the time. And I used to think that these products were very good. But as time went on, these companies became more and more commercialized. They started giving you features that you never asked for. And I think in many cases, the software that we have today from these big companies is actually worse than it was 10 years ago. Because they're, in my opinion, they're just adding things that we don't need, and at the same time that the services are being degraded. And so that's kind of the first step in my process. And then the second step was just a realization that we don't have much digital privacy left anymore in this world. And a lot of these companies, when you sign up to use their services, you're implicitly giving them all of your private information. You're giving them your name, your date of birth, your email addresses, and then they're using this information to sell to some kind of a data broker where they use that information to try to sell you products. So it's kind of been through this whole process where I've just kind of gotten sick of the standard software that was being offered to us, and the fact that none of these companies really respect our data privacy, that I started getting interested in these kind of open source software solutions where, sometimes they're not as good as the commercial ones, but at least you can be sure that the data are your data. That's you're not giving away your information for free. Also, with a lot of these open source software solutions, if there's a problem with the code, or if you find a bug, you can fix it. Or maybe you can't fix it yourself, but the first step is just to go to GitHub and open an issue and say, there's a problem with this code. Someone should look into it. And I would say 50% of the time, the bug gets fixed. So, imagine like you're trying to use some software from Apple, and there's a bug, like in the mail client. Who do you contact? It's not clear.
Yes.
And also, it's not even if you contact someone, the chances are they're not going to take into account your consideration because they don't care about you. They just care about making money. So that's kind of been my whole process towards moving away from these big companies and slowly moving towards these kind of more open source solutions.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and it's logical that it takes a duration, not like an overnight decision about changing services. But
Yeah, I'd say it's a long process, and anyone who's interested in doing this, you can't do it overnight. The first thing is just to pick just one software that you use and replace it with something else. So for example, getting away from Gmail accounts, open up an email account with a different, more private, email provider. And then instead of using Microsoft Word, maybe you transition to using LibreOffice or something like that. But it's a slow process, and you can't do it overnight, and it really takes several years. And there's still some software I would like to get rid of, but I can't. So it's a process that never ends. But it's if you're interested, there's easy steps to take. So
yeah, there are always some hardest about changing things. I also remember how I tried to move from Microsoft Office to other services. For the PDF creation part, especially when you send something to archive or some PDF creation for any purposes, I was able to use PDF LaTeX, for instance, MikTeX, instead of Microsoft Office, because it allowed me to do things I would like to do in a much low-end computer, because I was just able to use on Notepad++, let's say, the codes, the things I would like to add, rather than trying to open entire Microsoft Word. It solved my problem at that end, but when I started to do some other things or collaborate with people, again I needed to revert back or try to use LibreOffice or OpenApache, etc. So that's definitely some hard to convert something, especially after like decades of using it.
yeah, well, the good thing is when some software can be totally replaced by other software. I would say y- LibreOffice can be used with the old Microsoft Word, the docx format. So you can interchange between the two. But then there's other programs where it's more difficult to do that. But I would say LibreOffice, Microsoft Word, that's one of the first easy transitions to make.
Especially after getting used to user interface of it,
Yeah.
you just manage to do other ones. So let us talk about some one by one examples on changing the different services. I want to start with Twitter versus Mastodon service. There were a lot of users switching from Twitter to Mastodon, and some also Blue Sky, especially on the researchers and astrophysics parts. So how was that, and how did you find that your what you share in Mastodon reaches people, or people you urge to disable Twitter and enter Mastodon manage to work with it and be active there?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is that no one should be using Twitter, which is now called X. The platform is, filled with with racists
Yeah,
and just crazy people, following Elon Musk and his movement. There's really no reason for anyone to be on that platform anymore. And if you have a X account, I think it just looks poorly for yourself. So please get off of it. And then the question is, where do you go after that? And there's two choices. One is Mastodon, and the other is Blue Sky. And they're both fine. So I'm not saying you should choose one over the other, but they are different. Blue Sky is, it's kind of a commercial product right now. There's not many ads in Blue Sky, but that probably is going to change. But given that it is a commercial company, I'm sure that they are collecting all the data that they get from people, all the posts, and must be making money off of this somehow. So you have to think about what they're doing with your data. But I would say that in terms of platforms, Blue Sky is the most popular. There's lots of people on it. But in terms of science discussion, I'm not sure if it's the best place. Blue Sky, because there's so many people there, and because they have an algorithmic feed where they try to push, content onto you. A lot of times, the content they push onto you is not really what you're looking for, and it's kind of hard to find the actual science people that you're interested in looking at and the science discussions. And I'd say with Mastodon, Mastodon is a purely open source product. In terms of users, I'm not sure what the ratio is, but there's definitely less people on Mastodon than there are in Blue Sky. But it's an alternative which is functionally equivalent to Blue Sky or to Twitter and X. And I personally think it's better. In terms of the content you see on Mastodon, you don't see as much of the angry, yelling, polarizing debates, although that could come. But at the present time, it's not like that.
that's good.
Also, the format's a little bit different. You can write in terms of the posts. The posts are longer on Mastodon. I think it's 500 characters versus 300 on Blue Sky. And even though this is a very trivial thing, the content that you see on Mastodon is just much more interesting because you have a little bit more space to write about it. On places like Blue Sky, I think what people try to do is they try to write something that's very inflammatory and in a small number of characters so that everyone can see it, and you're constrained to have this small format where you can only use 300 characters, and it kind of pushes people in that direction. Whereas with Mastodon, you're freer to have these longer, open-ended discussions, and the having these short posts which are really impactful and and polarizing. You don't see that as much.
That's actually very good. It's like filtering you from bad content that would just waste your time or energy in any way. So it sounds very good.
But I would also say that Mastodon is the in terms of the number of users, it is less than Blue Sky. So, it is always a challenge to interest people to sign up and to use Mastodon. Um, One of the things I always try to point out to people is that Mastodon is part of the so-called Fediverse. They use a protocol that's called ActivityPub, and it allows Mastodon to interact very fluidly with other applications like PeerTube, of this video server we'll talk about later.
Yes.
It allows you to interact with the WordPress blog sites. It allows you to interact with other services like I don't use them very often, but there's a Instagram clone. I think it's PixelFed. um,
Wow.
but anyways, it allows you to interact with posts that are on different platforms because they're using the same protocol. So to me, in the long run, I think it's going to be one of the better. It'll be better than Blue Sky, but it's true at the present time there's less people on it. But the people that are there, they're friendlier, they're more willing to interact, and I think in general it's just a more positive experience.
That's very good to hear. I'll definitely use more of the Mastodon now. I can be
Well,
sure.
hopefully.
So the second one I will talk about is I want to hear about you is Slack versus Mattermost. I myself has a very positive experience of Mattermost, by the way. Slack was for some reason very sluggish. I don't know the entire reason for that. But Mattermost, it was very easy to use it from my desktop computer through web browser, etc. So I know a bit better than Mastodon as a user, and I'm very positive about it. What do you think of it as versus Mattermost case?
Yeah, so the main reason that we started using Mattermost is, I would say, 5 years ago, almost everyone was using Slack. And that was the default platform to use. And then Slack decided that they wanted to make money. And what they did is they changed their policies so that if you were using the free version, which almost everyone was, you were only allowed to see the last 90 days of history in your team.
Yeah,
And for some teams, that's fine. Some people don't care about the history. But if it's a scientific team, then generally you want to have access to the older posts and to the files that were uploaded previously. So this was the main motivation for our group to get off of Slack, because we didn't have the professional account so that we could access our history. And also, as time goes on, Slack is adding more and more dumb features to to their software, AI related things. And they just have things like pop-up ads every once in a while, and things like that, which are just annoying. So that was our main motivation for moving to Mattermost. And I would say Mattermost is functionally the same as Slack. The interface is almost identical. The differences are that the colors are different, but in terms of how it's organized and in terms of how you use it, it's almost identical to Slack. And I would say, in addition to Slack, there's some other platforms out there that are starting to get more important, like Discord is one. But Discord, I think, is going to follow the same path that
yeah,
Slack did, because it's a
probably.
it's a private company. They offer their services for free in the beginning, and at some point, they make the decision that they want to start making more money, and then they start changing their terms of services and start doing things by showing ads or selling your data, or whatever. So if you're happy and you're on Discord, I think you should prepare for the case where it will become worse in the near future. There's already a lot of people discussing this on forums about how it's inevitable or it's imminent that things are going to change. So just be aware of that and just prepare for the case when that happens.
Yeah, there is that too.
And I won't talk about Teams because that software is really, really bad. So never
Ah,
used it and never will.
there is actually a lot of bugs in it. So
Yeah.
I'm really surprised when some group actually uses it for a few years or so. But sometimes I was forced to it because of in order to attend the web conference, etc. Sometimes they just obligates you to use Microsoft Teams link, etc. So not only it is very sluggish, there are a lot of issues with that too.
Yeah, I wouldn't use it. I think the reason most people are forced into it is that if you're at a company or if you're at a big university, generally what happens is that they pay a lot of money to get a license to use a big software package like that, which would include Teams and Microsoft Word and all this stuff put together. And if you're at that university, you're kind of forced to use it because that's the only option that they give you. So it's really hard to escape that kind of environment when you don't have any choices. So the
Yeah.
only thing you can do is complain and ask your university to give you other options. I think, especially in Europe, like we're moving away from U.S. tech pretty quickly, and regardless of the privacy issues and things like that, in general, it's a question of money, because it's much easier to just run your own Mattermost server than it is to pay Microsoft tons of money to get
Definitely.
access to Teams. So in the end, it's much cheaper in the long run, and I think it's a better experience for everyone else. So
So I am seeing that moment as well. Especially it goes from some changing softwares to changing the entire operating system, like trying to using more Linux software as well. So hopefully it will be better on that end too.
Yeah, in terms of Linux, just one quick thing. Yeah, this was just reading some post the other day. And what I think if you want to do switch from something to Linux, the important thing is to first switch all your applications so that you're using an application that works on Linux and on Mac OS, or Linux and Microsoft products. And if you once you change all of the applications, switching the operating system is actually very easy. What's hard is when you change from, just change from Mac OS to Linux, and then you have to learn the new operating system and all the new software.
Yeah, that's
But
the
if you're
last.
already familiar with the software by using it on Mac OS or Windows, then it makes the process a lot easier.
Yeah, that's definitely a very good recommendation. Thank you very much again. So the third one is on our list as PeerTube.
Yeah, PeerTube is great. PeerTube is a replacement for YouTube, and the big difference is that it's first of all, it's open source software. Anyone can run their own PeerTube server, and also because PeerTube is part of the so-called Fediverse, you can interact between Mattermost, or you can interact between Mastodon and PeerTube. So if you post a video on PeerTube, you can see the video on Mastodon, and you can even write a comment on Mastodon, which will show up in PeerTube if you have it set up to do that. So I think it's really great. And for our server is called solarsystem.video. And what I think it's actually our server is better than using YouTube. And the reason I say this is that it's really hard to find planetary science content on YouTube if you're just searching for it. So if you go to YouTube and you search Mars volcanoes, volcanism or something like that, you're going to come up with a lot of videos which are either AI generated or things that are like very sensational, pushed towards the public, or conspiracy theory related things. And it's very hard to find scientific talks about Mars volcanism. If you go to our server and you just click on, search for Mars, you'll only get videos that are about planetary science, about Mars, you know, on topics that are at undergraduate, graduate, or professional research level. So if you're looking for planetary science content, our place is the place to go. Today we have almost 2,000 videos. Most of these videos, but not all, most of them are actually come from YouTube. So what we do is we have it set up where if you publish it, if you have a channel on YouTube, you can set it up so that your channel synchronizes with our server. And so the same content will appear both on YouTube and on PeerTube. So most of the content that is on our server is also on YouTube, but it's just much easier to find it. Also, as you can guess, there's no ads.
Yeah,
uh,
best
I
way.
think this is the one service that is really hard to replace is YouTube, because it's good and it has all the content is there. But if you're not paying for the premium account, you get bombarded with ads, and it's really annoying when you're watching a scientific talk and it's interrupted by ads. It just doesn't mesh very well. So anyways, our server doesn't have any ads. There's no tracking. It's functionally just as good as YouTube. And on top of that, it's easier to find the content you're looking for. So there's no reason not to use it. So solarsystem.video, check it out.
Yeah,
And
that's
also
great.
for your organization, like we kind of briefly discussed over email, like we're willing to set up a channel for anyone that has planetary science content. The only restriction is that we just want to make sure that the content is planetary science and not other things. So if anyone has a channel or it have any videos, just contact me and we'll set up an account for you, and it's very easy.
Yeah, I would definitely like that for these interview videos actually, since they are definitely on astrophysics related people, and it will be I wish and I hope it will be useful for the astrophysics community as well. So I think it will be sufficient for the quality requirements.
Yeah.
Not of course like irrelevant advertisement videos or any other content. I'm not doing those kinds of things anyway, but sometimes it needs to be said out loud.
Hmm.
So I will separately send an email regarding this part since this is very good. As you already described the detail, it's a very good and high quality way to reach audiences and interact with people on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention with
Mhm.
Mattermost as well. If there's a group of scientists out there that want a team so they can interact on Mattermost, we can easily create a team for you. So it just takes 5 minutes of our time, and the only thing that we ask is that the team leader is they're responsible for what goes on in the team. And if we find out that you're, not if you're misbehaving and not following our code of conduct, then we'll shut you down.
Yeah.
But we're very open. If you're especially if you're a international or community based team, we'll be happy to set something up for you.
Well, that's very important. Thanks for pointing this out as well. The fourth one is signatories. There were there were like two or three signatory mm, petition. I guess I just couldn't remember the word. Sorry.
Yeah,
So
so
just
signatories is this is one is a bit different because this is software that we actually wrote ourselves. And I would say of the stuff we have, this is the one that's the least used.
yes,
But it serves a purpose, and the purpose is mostly that in planetary science, especially in Europe, whenever there's a proposal to for a mission that's going to be under competition at ESA, one of the things people try to do is they write a kind of a letter of support and get members from the community to sign the letter saying that they support this mission. And at present, there's really no good way to do that. One thing you can do is you can have a shared spreadsheet online and people just type in their name, but you can type in anyone's name, so you don't know if the person is real or not. Um, you can set up some kind of Google form, but it's the same kind of thing. Either you can't verify who the person is, or you have to have an account at Google to verify who you are.
yes,
And what our software is, it's just a very simple. You can look at the website. It's very simple. You can create a letter. Uh, it just creates a website for you, and then there's an option where people can click to sign the letter. And the way that they sign is when they click to sign, they have to authenticate that they have an account at Orchid. So that you, in essence, sign into your orchid.org account. And
yes,
then after you sign in, you go back to the website and it knows who you are. And then you can sign and your name is added to the list of signatories. And on top of that, people can click on your name to see who you are because you're every person who signs is a real person with an account at Orchid. So to me, it's very useful because when you sign, it proves that you are who that you are really who you say you are. People can click on that to see who you are. And there's also an option where you can sign anonymously. And the good thing about signing anonymously with us is that even though your name doesn't appear, you can it's certain that you have an Orchid account. So with other platforms, you could just say, we have 1,000 anonymous signatories. But how do you prove that? That you can just make this number up. With ours, you have to log in, you have to prove that you have an Orchid account, and then you sign. And if you choose not to have your information be visible, your name, your number is added to the tally of the number of people who signed it. But it's at least proves that the anonymous people actually exist.
yeah,
So, and yeah, in terms of the use of this platform, there's only two campaigns that are active on there. One was a campaign about which written by people who were unhappy with the Lunar and Planetary Science Conference, how they started
yes.
censoring their abstracts and things like that. And then there's another one that I started, which is just saying that I'm not going to review for scientific journals that aren't open access. And if you agree with either of these two letters, just go to the website. It's signatories.solarsystem.tools, I think. It's on our main association website, and just it's very easy to use.
Yes, I will definitely put these links to the description of the video so they will be able to reach those things.
Yeah, I should say that almost everything I'm talking about is on our association website, and the link is coop.planetary-research.org. And on our main homepage for the association, that's where you'll find all the links for all these services.
Yes, we will also talk these associations
Okay.
as well once we are done with the alternatives. Now there are two more services, softwares that I haven't used it and I don't know really well about them. The first one is Indico.
Yeah, Indico is software developed by CERN, and it is designed to help you uh, organize conferences and meetings and workshops and things like that. It takes a little bit of time to figure out how to use it, but in essence, what you do is you can create a conference. You can have a people can sign up to register for the conference. You can even pay by credit card if there's a registration fee. You can set it up so that people can submit abstracts. You can have you can even have the abstracts reviewed by people if you wanted to, and then you can create a program and a PDF for the program and things like that. So it's really an all-in-one solution for organizing workshops all the way up to conferences that are as big as EGU and AGU. You could do that. It'd be those are huge conferences, but
Yes.
in principle, you could use the software for that. So we've used it for a couple like workshops, and it works well. So if you're organizing a conference, this is something that you might want to consider using, because I think that's the biggest problem is that when you want to organize a workshop, you have to have a web page. So that's the first problem. It's like, how do I create a web page? Well, you can create the web page on our service with it's solarsystem.events. It's an Indigo server. And then if you want to do payments, that's another complicating factor. If you have an account with a payment provider, you can add it to our server. And also just by doing things like generating the program, people generally just have a big spreadsheet on their computer and try and organize things manually. But with the Indico software, you just click on it and it generates a PDF of the entire program. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds very good. So the
But
last
that's something
one,
that if people want to use that, yeah, all we have to do is just to give you the permission to create a conference. So just send us an email and we can set that up for you. And also because Indico there is the learning, it's just kind of, I wouldn't say it's a steep learning curve, but it takes a little bit of an investment to figure out how it works. We're willing to help you and work with you to set something like this up.
yeah, thank you very much for your efforts again. So the last one is LibraForms.
Libra Forms. This is a great alternative to Google Forms. I never liked Google Forms, and and I think Libra Forms is just the same type of thing where you can create a form, put it online, and have people can sign in and just click on boxes or type stuff in. You get notified. You can get notified by email of the responses. You can log into your account to see all the responses and download it. And I think it's even more powerful than Google Forms because you can do things like you can share ownership of the forms with other people. You can, if you want, to enable end-to-end encryption so that the data is not can't be seen by the administrators on our servers. And I think just in terms of the overall usability, it's a much better experience than using Google Forms. Anyone can sign up for an account, and to create a form, it only takes a few minutes, and it's nice. So I encourage everyone to use it. I think everyone who has used it, they're impressed by it. Uh, not as many people have used it as I would like, but this will change over time.
Yes,
And
definitely.
as people see it being used in the wild, I think more people will realize that it's a really nice piece of software. And there's actually one more that we just launched a couple days ago,
Oh,
which is Uh, well, it's kind of well, it's a jobs platform where it's a website called jobs.planetary-research.org, and it's a platform where you can advertise any job openings that you have, and it's very simple to use. It's the same thing with our signatories uh, code. You just log in using your Orchid account. There's a form where you fill out the name of the job, the salary if you know it, the start date. That takes only like 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. You click publish, and then it adds your job announcement to the main page of the website. And it also advertises it on Blue Sky and Mastodon. And also, we have a weekly email list where you can get a summary of all the new job postings. So we just launched this. Well, we just put out our inaugural blog post about this on Monday. So yeah, it's only been a few days, and we have about 20 job announcements that are already on the website, and anyone can post any job that they want as long as it's related to planetary science. So if you're someone that's a early career person or a student, it's a really good site to look at. We have announcements for PhD projects, announcements for postdocs, announcements for professor positions, and we have several other categories. For example, if you want to advertise a master project for students, we have a category for master projects and so on. So it's really I think it's a great service that we're offering, and I think as soon as people see this, they'll realize that this is the best place to go for planetary science jobs.
Well, that's quite important actually, since especially it has been just a couple of days since you have announcements. It shows that the people needs this and likely to use
Yeah.
it as well. Very good.
Yeah, the problem I have today is, and the reason we did this is that, well, there's two reasons. One is that if you have a job announcement, it costs a lot of money to publish this on a site like AGU. So AGU, they charge roughly about $600 to $1,000 per month for a job announcement, which is crazy. If you, some other societies, I think it's the American Astronomical Society, they have a service which is pretty good, but they charge 300 euros or $300 per month for an ad. And I just think this is crazy because you're just giving them a web page, and it doesn't cost anyone anything to do that. And
Yeah.
we're just going to offer it for free. so that's the main motivation for me to do this. But the second motivation is that it's really hard when you're looking for a job. It's hard to know where to look because you can go to the AGU job announcements platform, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to the American Astronomical Society. There's other places that have job announcement boards. There's email lists. There's things on Slack and Mattermost, and it's just really hard to find out about all the jobs. And a lot of times there are jobs that you will miss because it's not in your geographic area, for example, or it's just one of those jobs that was under the radar and just wasn't advertised on the platform that you use. And so the second motivation for creating this is to create a single place where you can put all jobs together for free. And then from our platform, we're going to try to advertise it through as many different platforms and media as possible. So email, and also, as I mentioned, Blue Sky and Mastodon. So check that out if you're looking for a job. I think it's a great site. And this was software that we ourselves created as an association, but it's also free and open source software. So if you want to use it for another discipline, say astronomy or geology, you're free to download the code and set it up. There's only one file that you have to change that gives all the branding, so it's really easy to set up.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you very much for the efforts again. And with a when you say about a single place to look for all these things, it also occurs to me that the similar issue is happening in the workshop and conference related to the astrophysics, astronomy, and planetary science. I mean, there are some places that some manual effort still in 2026 tries to list
Yeah.
some webinars and conferences, etc. But it is really hard to reach the critical information from them. I
Yeah, I
myself,
would say the only person or place that's doing a good job is the Planetary Exploration newsletter, which is an email list that goes out once per week on Sunday, and it's run by people at the Planetary Science Institute in the U.S. And it's a very bare bones, just text based newsletter, but it has all the information that we as a community want. So you could add a job announcement there. What will happen is that we will just take that job announcement and put it on our platform anyways. But then they also do have a listing of all of the planetary science workshops and conferences, which
yes,
I think is the most complete one. And but I agree, a lot of people don't know about the planetary exploration newsletter. So that's another problem is that people in planetary science sometimes don't know where to look for these things, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with our association, is try to give a central place where people can go to and see what's available and where to go.
yeah,
We're
that's
not there yet,
important.
but that's our aim.
Yeah, thanks again. Now, since we already stated about the association, and we were coming to that question anyway, so here is the last question, the most important one. So, how this Planetary Research Journal and Planetary Research Corporation became alive? The how the idea was generated, how things went on, and then we reached to the today, which is a very good actually. Both the
Well,
association and the journal itself. And you were saying that journal starts to take the submissions as well, which is another great thing about it. So they seems to be successful on these efforts.
yeah, so first with the journal, is the journal is online. We launched it in January 1st of this year, and we have I forget the number. There's 20ish, 20 roughly 20 manuscripts that are in the review process. We have accepted 3 manuscripts already, and we are in the process of fine tuning the final PDF templates for the manuscript for the final versions, and we expect to publish these online hopefully at the end of this month. So by
Oh,
July 1st. If we're a little bit late, I really apologize to the authors. We're doing our best. It's always the first couple manuscripts that are the hardest because we're learning how to do this as we go.
yes.
But it's just to let the community know that we are getting submissions, we have accepted manuscripts, and we intend to publish our first manuscripts online very soon, hopefully by the end of this month. But yeah, in terms of the creation of the journal, it's another thing where it was a long process. It started when I was when was this? 2005. I think I was the editor in chief of JGR Planets, and it was a really good experience, and I liked working with AGU. But it also became very clear that the scientific community does all the work for publishing it, almost all the work for publishing the journal. So the editors, they're not really paid. They might get a couple $1,000 just to keep them happy, but their work is mostly free. So the editors, they read the manuscripts, they contact reviewers. The reviewers aren't paid. The authors aren't paid either. And so all this work of writing the manuscript, and then getting it accepted is all done roughly for free by the community. And it's only after that where there's someone that comes in and takes the final author manuscripts and then converts it into a PDF. And as time goes on, that gets more and more easy to do in-house because of just the revolution in electronic publishing. So at this point, I don't think we really need these large societies to help us publish these journals, because it can be done by ourselves. And maybe if you're in planetary science, you might not be aware, but there's been a huge um, impetus in the geosciences to move away from these big society-run publications towards these more community-run journals. And this started in 2017 with the journal Volcanica, and then there was a journal Seismica, which for seismology, Tectonica for tectonics, Geomorphica, um, Geodynamica just launched earlier or just the last year. Advances in geochemistry and cosmochemistry, and I think I'm missing one or two. But these journals, these are all journals that were created in the last 10 years, and most of them in the last 4 or 5 years. So this is really, I think, the direction that publishing is going. It's getting away from these big publishers, which charge lots of money, and towards these smaller journals, which are generally free. So all those journals I just mentioned, they're called Diamond Open Access, which means that all the content is free for anyone to download. You don't have to pay a subscription fee or anything. And also, it's free for the author. So
Yes.
it's free for everyone. The big problem though is that in general there are some costs involved and you have to pay those somehow. But for our journal, what we're going to do is outsource the conversion of the author manuscripts into the final PDF versions, and that's going to cost roughly 200 euros per manuscript. Now, it's not a lot of money, but we have to find the money somewhere. But 200 euros, that's so much cheaper than something like AGU. If you publish a manuscript at JGR Planets, you're going to pay roughly $5,000 for that, and we're doing it for $200. So it's at least one order of magnitude cheaper. And if you compare that to something like Nature Publishing Group and Science, those journals they charge up to 10,000 euros if you want to publish your manuscript as open access. So anyway, so that's the kind of second reason that we kind of got involved in this, is that people I'd say over the past 10 years, they've been getting more and more sick of these big publishing houses, especially Elsevier, because they charge a lot of money for people to access their content. And a lot of like university libraries, they actually don't have the money sometimes to pay these subscription fees. And if that's the case, and you work at that university, you can't access, journals like Icarus or, you know, Earth and Planetary Science Letters or things like that. So it's a really bad situation because as scientists we're funded by the public from government funds, and when we publish our work online, since it was created with public funds, it should be available to everyone. And if you decide to publish with the Icarus and your work is only available to a certain number of universities who have access to the journal, that's just not right.
Yes.
So anyways, there's a whole bunch of reasons of why we did this, but it's mostly just a recognition that we can do it ourselves. It's very easy. It doesn't cost that much, and it's better for everyone because as scientists, it's annoying when you go to a journal that has a paywall and you have to log in. Sometimes you don't have a subscription, and it's also annoying when you have to pay these excessive publication costs to publish your own work. When I talk to people who aren't in science, they're actually shocked to learn that we, as an author, pay the publisher to publish our work. Because in general, it's the other way around.
Yes.
Generally, it's the publisher who wants the content, and they pay the author for it. So it's a total perverse, backwards system, and you know, people are starting to realize this, and that's why our journal and these other Diamond Open Access journals are starting to appear.
Yes. So how about cooperation and how you managed to make the international collaborations and efforts that allowed this Diamond Open Access Journal from idea to something solid?
Yeah, so the first thing that we did was to create a nonprofit association called the Planetary Research Cooperative. And it's international in terms of its membership and the people involved, but it's a nonprofit that's based and registered in France. And the reason we did this is that we the, our journal is actually owned by the nonprofit or nonprofit association. And with many journals, it's the way they do this is that they it's the university where they're located who actually owns the journal. So what this means is that if for whatever reason we're not happy with our publishing contract at the university where we work, we can pick up and leave and go somewhere else because we own the journal. Also, for the association, the second reason for creating it is that we do have to get some funding to pay for the production aspects of the journal. And as I mentioned before, we think that it's going to cost roughly $200, 200 euros per manuscript. And if we publish, 200 manuscripts per year, which is, roughly what you see at JGR Planets or Icarus or PSJ, that's going to cost us roughly 40,000
Yes.
euros per year. 40,000, might be a lot for you as an individual, but it's really not a lot of money. It's the cost of publishing 4 manuscripts at Nature. So, so the association, what we're trying to do is we're going to set up a consortium of, roughly 6 members who are willing to share the costs of running the journal. And if we have 6 people that are signed up, it's only going to cost each one about 5,000, 6,000 euros per year, which isn't a lot of money. Also, the association is open to donations. We have gotten some donations from planetary science laboratories. So far, these are only laboratories in France, but it's very easy to just send us a thousand euros to the association instead of sending 5,000 to AGU. So if you're part of a research group that has funding for publication costs and you would like to help us run the journal, we're open for contributions from people from universities and from research groups and laboratories. We also can accept donations from individuals. But I personally don't want to run the association based on small contributions from individual researchers. If you want to give us money and if you have funding to do that, that's great. Please do it. But what we don't want to do is just always sending emails reminding people to we need money. Please send us money or else we don't have enough money to run the journal. We don't want to do this. We just want to get, roughly get 6 partners who will be stable over time and will help offset the costs. And then also what we'd like to do is accept, one-off donations from research groups who have extra money for publication costs that weren't used. They can send it to us. So that's our strategy for trying to fund the journal. And so far, we don't. Right now, we have the journal is being run off of some grants that we have in France, but those grants will run out in 2.5 years. So we have to have the funding consortium set up by that time.
That looks very good plan. So hopefully it will be forwarding in your favor.
Well, hopefully it works out. So
Yes.
far, things are running smoothly, but it's always the money part, which is the most annoying part.
Yeah, because especially as a researcher, you don't really want to think about the money, but how things develops, how your research, trainings, etc., rather than the money works.
Yeah, and sometimes also it's hard to ask for small amounts of money. So if if we're going to ask for some like the European Space Agency, it's hard to ask them to give us 5,000 euros because that's such a small amount of money compared to their overall budget that they just don't care.
Yes.
Sometimes it'd probably be easier just to ask for 1 million because they'll be like, oh, okay, this is a commitment and we have the money, we can do it. But I think that's the biggest problem is that it's just really hard to get these small €5,000 type donation from people, because for many organizations it's not a lot of money and it's not worth their time to, to do it.
But the research fund idea seems plausible because there are always, in many cases, since there are so many indexed journals in several parts, they allocate some parts for the article publication. So that that seems to be okay, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think what we want to do eventually is we since our project is a community run project, like we want to be open about what the costs are, and we want to be open as to where our funding is coming from. And also, if you want us to give us a donation, I want you to be certain that it's gonna be put to good use. It's not gonna go to someone's salary. It's not gonna go to, travel or anything like that. It will go towards a specific thing, which is running the journal. That's all. And the question is, how are we going to inform the community about this? I think what we'll probably end up doing is just, writing a letter at once per year, just giving an overview of what our funding situation, so people know how much the journal costs, where our money is coming from, how many donations we got, things like that. What I don't want to do is beg for money,
Yes.
but I think we have to be, open with the community so they understand that even though it's free, there is a hidden cost that has to be paid by someone. And if you have the funding, please, contact us, and we'd be happy to set up a partnership.
Yeah, that's very good to hear too. Now, thanks for thanks for answering my questions very in a very detailed manner. So I individually feel I individually felt enlightened about that and learned new servers, how things developed in journal and cooperation as well. So here is the last part now. Is there anything you would like to say to the community, especially the astrophysics and planetary scientists, graduates and beyond?
Well, I think I've said most of what I want to say, but I think, part of it, what we're doing is just a question of teaching people and letting people know of what's available. So I would just encourage everyone to go to our website and see the services that we're offering, and click through them and see if they interest you. Some of them might, some of them might not. That's fine. And also, as I mentioned before, we can create accounts for you on any of our services. Some of the services you don't have to ask; you can just sign up immediately. But some things like Mattermost, you should ask me if you want your own team. If you want an account on PeerTube, you have to ask someone for that. But it's easy to set up, so don't be shy. Just ask. And also with the Indico server, if you want to set up a conference, that's something where we have to give you permission, but it's also something that only takes us 1 minute to do. So, so I would just emphasize to everyone that these services that we're creating are for you. They're for free. We're not going to ask for any money. And if you're not sure how to use them, or if you're not sure how to create an account, just ask us, and we will be happy to help.
So
So
thank you very
I think that's about all I need to say.
well. Thank you very much for your interview again. So thanks accepting this. So I'm turning to audience now. See you at later. See you at another interview.
Okay.